Hello, and welcome to Angelic Encounters. I am Kaybe Angel, and today we are talking about the biggest kind of encounter you are likely to run in your TTRPG of choice: war. Or at least a singular massive battle. Fantasy and science fiction are full of massive conflicts in which our heroes are but a small part of a much more substantial battle. Helm's Deep in the Battle of Pelennor Fields in The Lord of the Rings, the final battle of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the space battle during Return of the Jedi, also the battle over the shield generator on Endor in that same movie. An entire legion of my best troops awaits them. And who knows how many Ewoks. And thousands of other examples. In your TTRPG, your player characters may end up taking part in such a battle, either as the commanders of their own force, or simply as members of one side or another. And as a GM, you may run into an issue with how to run this. The PCs aren't personally powerful enough to fight the entire army of hobgoblins. If they are, that's a different question. But they need the NPC army to hold. Even if the PCs hold their ground, their allies could be overrun. They are just a small part of an entire army which needs to win or lose together. So, how can you, the GM, fairly adjudicate the outcome of this entire battle while still giving the PCs the spotlight that they should have as the focus characters of our game? The answer that is best for you is going to depend on your players, your system, and your specific PCs, but I have a few suggestions. Option 1. Play a different game. First, you can play a different game. No, I don't mean a different TTRPG with different rules. I mean you can use a war game. I have the least to say about this option, so I'm getting it out of the way first, because I am not a wargamer. I've played a few rounds of skirmish games that my friends have dragged me into and provided the minis for, but not really any war games. But if your group does include wargamers, and they have a system that can model a battle similar enough to the one happening in your RPG, then by all means, you can set up that battle and use that system to adjudicate it. This is probably best if your actual player characters are not individually powerful enough to really swing the battle in any meaningful way. You might designate which unit of soldiers in the wargame each PC is attached to, and if that unit is defeated, come up with rules to determine if the PC with them escaped, was wounded, or killed in the battle, even if their side ultimately won. But other than that, I don't have much to say on this option. Let's move on to option 2. The second option, your system might have some optional mass combat rules, which you can use. Now, you don't need me to tell you, if your game has rules for a thing, use those rules. But a situation that I have come across before is a system might have rules for mass combat that don't exactly match the situation that your PCs find themselves in. I'm going to use a specific example from a game that I ran. I ran a campaign in Tales of the Solar Patrol for GURPS. Tales of the Solar Patrol is a setting for GURPS that is basically retro sci-fi. Think Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers style with rocket ships and atomic lasers and, the swamps of Venus and so on. It's a really fun setting that I recommend that you check out. I'll spare you a recap of my entire campaign, but the climax involved a final space battle between a fleet of ships from Earth and the villain's fleet of ships in the space over Mars. The PCs, while pivotal in the events leading up to this point, and some of the most skilled solar patrolmen in the fleet, were still just commanding a singular patrol ship, the Horatio Magoo. No amount of skill could have made up for them being completely outmassed by the army in front of them, and the damage they could inflict was far below what a patrol cruiser or any larger ship on their side could dish out. So, I looked at the GURPS mass combat rules, which are a really good resource that I recommend you pick up if you play GURPS, but I had an issue. Firstly, a good portion of the rules are dedicated to building an army. The assumption for these rules, for the most part, is that the PCs are building or commanding an army. They are fantasy lords or ladies or modern mercenary company or sci-fi rogue traders building a private army, something like that. That all wasn't relevant to my needs. So in this case, I just figured the relative troop strength of the two forces without going into the specific details of the exact breakdown of ships. Next, since the PCs were not in command of their side, the highest ranked PC was again a starship captain in a singular patrol ship. There were several ranks above him to get to the admiral in charge of their side. So, using the mass combat rules as written, they would not be making the tactical choices for their side. Does the admiral order an attack, an all-out attack, a tricky deceptive attack, some sort of defensive maneuver? All of these are options in the mass combat system. This isn't up to them, in character at least. I could have just let them play the admiral for the duration of the battle and make those decisions as a collective group, and that would have worked. But that puts the spotlight on the admiral and not on the PCs. So, in GURPS Mass Combat, there is another part of the process that was important to consider. Each round, all player characters involved in a mass combat and any major NPCs roll for heroic deeds. They select a risk modifier. They get a bonus for having relevant combat skills at very high levels or useful advantages, and you make 2 rolls. One is made before the main strategy contest of the commanders, which can give their side a bonus to strategy. And one is made after the damage to both sides has been dealt. The second roll, called the Misfortune of War roll, determines if they personally take damage during the battle. It is possible for your side to be victorious for a round, and for a PC or major NPC to still be badly injured or even killed by the Misfortune of War roll. The risk modifier you select at the start of the round makes you more likely to give a bonus to your side, the higher it is, but also more likely to be injured at the end of the round. So you can play it safe, take a negative to a negative risk modifier, which makes you very unlikely to significantly contribute, but you're also very unlikely to be harmed, and then vice versa. You can take a very high risk modifier, do something outlandish. You're very likely to give your side a positive strategy modifier, but you're also very likely to be personally injured in the process. Now, these heroic actions and Misfortune of War rolls are great. They quickly abstract the individual actions of the PCs. If you already have your army's troop score and the GM has the adversary's troop score, you can pretty quickly play through a massive battle and still have the PCs participate and personally affect the battle with their skills and powers. The problem for me was that my PCs in this scenario were all on the same ship. It was difficult for me to justify them each having their own risk modifier, heroic actions, and misfortune checks. They're really working as a collective. They're one ship in this battle. So, what I actually did was I did play the Admiral as an NPC and make those tactical decisions for their side, what maneuver their army took each round. But each round, I gave the players a choice of 3 encounters to choose from, with increasing difficulty. If they were victorious in them, they would grant a +1, a +2, or a +3 strategy bonus for their side. This allowed them, as an individual ship to play out those heroic actions. They got to choose their risk. Do they engage with like a couple of small fighters? Do they engage like an entire squadron of enemy fighters, or do they engage a singular, more dangerous ship? During later rounds of the combat, when things were going a little bit against their side, I gave the PCs an additional near-suicidal option of taking a run on the enemy flagship to disable their primary gun. They had no chance of actually defeating this larger vessel in single combat, but I gave them an option to make a single run on the enemy flagship's primary gun, a massive cannon that was shredding their fleet, with the promise of a +4 strategy bonus for their side. If I remember correctly, they took that risk, they succeeded, but at the cost of their own ship. The Horatio Magoo, which had been their home for the entire campaign, was destroyed. They managed to survive being spaced, and were rescued by some space pirates that they had a complicated relationship with, a long story for another time. My point in telling this anecdote is that even if the rules for the mass combat in your system don't perfectly model what your situation is, a little homebrew and improvisation can pull it all together and make something really cool, using some of these later options as ways to think about that and to modify these rules. Third, zoom in on the action. Third, this is, I think, the default option. The standard, the normal one to do. You zoom in on a small part of the battlefield. You make an encounter for the PCs to deal with. I recommend waves of weak foes, individually weak, but a lot of them. Adjust that for what your specific system can handle. When I do this, I like to include some allied NPC soldiers that accompany the players. Give them unique names and a personality trait if you really want to drive home the horrors of war. Soldier number 3 falling to the Ogre's Club is less interesting than Billy Williamson getting turned to paste after cracking nervous jokes in the lead up to the battle, but don't overdo this. You can let the players run these NPCs for their side, and I recommend doing this if the players are confident enough with the rules of the system to do so quickly. Otherwise, you can run them, just be fast. Don't waste time with this. Don't give these soldiers special abilities or have them do anything too complex. Have them make standard attack actions, whatever is appropriate for your system. I once had an NPC soldier named Jenny, who became a player favorite, was killed in a battle like this, was revived by the party cleric, and later came into the party service as a sidekick. She was a very memorable NPC. Assuming the PCs win their encounter, I'll typically assess the overall narrative impact of the battle based on the casualties their NPC allies suffered. No casualties? A decisive victory for the forces of good. A few deaths, a victory with some costs, but nothing outlandish, nothing unexpected. Few survivors, a very costly victory. And if all of their NPC allies in their encounter are wiped out, only the PCs are left standing, this battle is a Pyrrhic victory. I hope that the PCs didn't need these allies to join them in another counterattack, because they are spent. Option the fourth, an adventure in the background. Another option, similar to the zoom in option but a little bit different, is to give the PCs a special mission during the battle. This might be a stealth operation to disable a specific enemy weapon, drop their shields, or kill/capture the enemy commander. This might be a dungeon crawl on a timer to capture the Lich's MacGuffin, lets him control the thousands of undead, in which every 10-minute dungeon turn means more people die and join his undead army. This might be using a secret passage to infiltrate the enemy castle while the army lays siege outside, or anything else you can imagine. I recommend this approach when you have highly effective PCs capable of doing things ordinary soldiers just couldn't succeed at, but who aren't so powerful that they can turn the tide of a massive battle just by fighting it. Treat these PCs like an elite commando squad. Give them a task that is essential. If you don't disable that weapon by the time it's in position, our walls, force field, magic projections are useless. If you don't destroy the Lich's Well of Souls, the endless undead will overwhelm us. If you don't... ... You fill in the blank. Then just run it like any other adventure, just with these very high stakes. And don't forget to include the signs of the battle in your narration, and put time pressure on them. Every minute they waste, people are dying. Push them. Option 5. A skill challenge or similar. Lastly, you might resolve things as a skill challenge. I would reserve this for PCs who themselves are not great fighters. If your PCs are socialites, academics, armchair generals, ritualist wizards, or the like, they might not be going to the front lines. They might not be given a job, like sneak behind the enemy lines and disable their super weapon. But they might still be able to help with logistics, inspiring the troops, strategy meetings, or convincing reluctant allies to join their side. In this situation, a skill challenge might be appropriate. Matt Colville has a video on skill challenges that I can recommend, and I have a script in the works for a video on skill challenges that will be coming to this channel soon. Hit subscribe and ring the bell. But generally, you treat a skill challenge like a montage scene in a movie. Each PC describes what they're attempting to do to help. They make an appropriate skill check. GM totals the successes and failures. Typically, the PCs need X number of successes before Y number of failures. Optionally, I like to include certain events at certain thresholds. This might be a specific problem, encounter, situation that accompanies each failure, or a certain number of failures, which needs to be resolved before the challenge can continue. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the sacred bell for more Angelic Encounters in the future. Please check out my links in the description below. I have an actual play channel, The Worlds of Heroic Adventures, where sessions I've run and edited to be more watchable can be found. Check out Tales of Principles for a JRPG-style fantasy campaign in Pathfinder 2. And check out The Legend of Zelda: Cycles of Power for something really special. And more in the future, I hope. Have a nice night.